To keep minting fans, Lucasfilm must give new generations their own collection of characters to love and hate, and not every classic character can be brought back endlessly anyways. Kennedy is well aware of all of this now. In The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, Mark Hamill, who was 70, delivered performances as 30-something Luke Skywalker, but younger actors played Luke's body, while advanced deepfake technology replaced the face. Bringing Luke to life is now a team sport, but that tech has its limitations. So does recasting. And I'm going to tell you now, Michael, a lot of people have been circulating this particular part of the article around as saying Kathleen Kennedy admits failure. Let's see. The 2018 movie Solo explored Han Solo's younger years, with Alden Ehrenreich taking on the role of the smuggler originated by Harrison Ford. The film has its admirers, but it made less at the box office than any other live-action Star Wars movie. Solo's swagger may be too singular for another actor to replicate. And here's the quote. There should be moments along the way when you learn things, says Kennedy. Now it does seem so abundantly clear that we can't do that. To endure... Wait, actually no. Before I go on, what do you think about that section?
Well, it definitely seems like because she admits that there was some mistake made. However, there's a few things that's wrong with this in particular quote, where you have to remember Solo was not a major or a movie drop. It was a side story, spin-off. And so, of course, it's not going to make as much as, say, something like The Rise of Skywalker or The Empire Strikes Back. It's just not going to happen. And also, what the article says is that it was played by Alden Ehrenreich, who was meant to portray a younger Han Solo. And so, of course, Han Solo that we know now is going to act a lot differently than Han Solo, say, when he was like 20 years younger. Now, I'm not saying I disagree, but there are some things to consider when looking at this in particular statement.
Yeah, I think a couple things. Yes, this is clearly Kennedy admitting, look, we should never have thought that we could successfully recast Han Solo. And I have two things to say. Number one, you're a bit too late on that, Kathleen. And number two, given everything else that has gone wrong with Star Wars under your watch, that's what you're apologizing for right now? Like, for example, given everything going on that happened with Gina Carano, the sequel trilogy, and the way that certain Lucasfilm employees were allowed to openly harass the fans, like, for example, the Star Wars Theory, the Pablo Hidalgo stuff, and recasting Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo, that's what you're apologizing for?
Yeah.
Moving on. To endure, Star Wars will need new actors, new characters, and a new era, vaulting away from the timeline as we know it. Another upcoming series, The Acolyte, reportedly starring, and I think this is a typo, Amandla, I think that's Amanda, Stenberg, aims to do that. The show is in the casting phase, but the writing is largely complete, says showrunner Leslie Headland, co-creator of the time-looping Netflix show Russian Doll. She has been planning it for 2 years, mostly from the confines of her home. Her dog and cat, who peek in curiously from the background of Zoom conversations, are certainly steeped in the concept of the galaxy's High Republic era, she says. But casual Star Wars fans who haven't been following the recent novels and comics might still be unaware. The Acolyte, Headland says, takes place roughly 100 years before The Phantom Menace. A lot of those characters haven't even been born yet. We're taking a look at the political and personal and spiritual things that came up in a time period that we don't know much about. My question when watching The Phantom Menace was always, well, how did things get to this point? How did we get to a point where a Sith Lord can infiltrate the Senate and none of the Jedi pick up on it? Like, what went wrong? What are the scenarios that led us to this moment? Headland describes The Acolyte as a mystery thriller set in a prosperous and seemingly peaceful era when the galaxy is still sleek and glistening. We actually use the term the Renaissance, or the Age of Enlightenment, she says. Jedi were not always aesthetic monk-like figures living selflessly and bravely. The Jedi uniforms are gold and white, and it's almost like they would never get dirty. They would never be out and about, Headland says. The idea is that they could have these types of uniforms because that's how little they're getting into skirmishes. So, what do you think of that? Because, being honest with you, I'm not going to say exactly who Leslie Headland has connections to on here. Look that up yourself, but I'm not interested in this show.
Hmm.
Given other rumors that have come out about it, about
Yeah.
certain agendas that they want to push, as well as the idea that, at least according to rumors,
Hmm.
that
I
they
I get
are
what you're saying.
hiring people that have intentionally not watched Star Wars.
Yeah. So one thing that I can point out that she's doing right, and I did say right, is she is asking the right question. How did things get to this point? Because as Kiadi says that the Sith were extinct for over a millennia. Now, how she is supposedly answered the question of how did things get to this point, I believe is where we're seeing it being done wrong. Or personally, if I was running this show, I would still call it the Acolyte, but I would actually focus it more on Palpatine and his rise to become Dark Lord of the Sith, and eventually Senator of Naboo, the Chancellor, and pretty much see the relationship between him and Darth Plagueis.
Yes. I hope that's what the Acolyte is, but I don't have very much hope.
Yeah. I also want to
Another new.
say
Go ahead.
I also want to say that for the most part we've had pretty much radio silence of the Acolytes for like a good while because we already covered it on the channel. That was like maybe months from then, right?
Yeah. The only people that I really know that have talked about the Acolyte in recent weeks is, of course, Echo Base Network that we follow and
Mm,
Doomcock.
yeah,
But aside from that, at least that I've heard, no one's been talking about it.
exactly.
All right, so continuing on. Another new series on the horizon doesn't even have a title, just a code name, Grammar Rodeo, and a reference to an episode of The Simpsons in which Bart and his schoolmates steal a car and run away for a week, using a phony educational event as an alibi. The show takes place during the post-Return of the Jedi reconstruction that follows the fall of the Empire, same as The Mandalorian, but its plot remains a secret. It's created and executive produced by director John Watts and writer Chris Ford, who made Spider-Man: Homecoming for Marvel. A casting notice is called for 4 children around 11 to 12 years old. Inside Lucasfilm, the show is being described as a galactic version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films of the 80s. That leaves the question, what's happening with the Star Wars movies? We have a roadmap, Kennedy says, although Lucasfilm's big screen return is unlikely to follow the same relentless cadence as before. A movie from Jojo Rabbit's Taika Waititi, who also, by the way, made Thor Ragnarok and is making Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah, and was also the voice of IG-11 and
Mhm.
actually directed some episodes of The Mandalorian.
He directed, if I'm not mistaken, the season 1 finale, correct?
That is what I was tracking. I might have to double check that though.
Okay. And 1917 screenwriter Christy Wilson Cairns will likely arrive first, with Rogue Squadron from Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins further off. Is it true that Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige will produce a Star Wars film? I would love to see what movie he might come up with, Kennedy says, but right now, no, there isn't anything specifically. And the trilogy from The Last Jedi's Rian Johnson that was announced 5 years ago, backburnered. Ryan has been unbelievably busy with Knives Out and the deal that he made at Netflix for multiple movies. The emphasis on television is already influencing the upcoming film slate. I hesitate to use the word trilogies anymore because Star Wars is much more about persistent storytelling, Kennedy says. Now she just needs to recruit feature filmmakers. So, what did you think about that?
So at least we have some answer as to what's going on with Rian Johnson, because I've honestly forgotten about it, but at least there's that.
Yeah. I, again, just kind of where I am with Star Wars as a whole, I struggle to get excited for any of that because I got excited for the sequel trilogy and overall was disappointed. I got excited for Book of Boba Fett and was disappointed. I got excited for The Bad Batch, and while that wasn't nearly as bad as the last two, it still left me a little bit cold. So, could these be good? Yes. Am I excited for it? No. I think the most that I can say is that it has my attention. What do you think, Michael?
It definitely is ambitious to be moving towards television, because Star Wars did get its start from the big screen.
Right.
But as of now, all I can say is that we're just getting separate spin offs. We're not getting any major titles, also, if you know what I'm saying. We're not
Of
getting like
course.
Star Wars Episode 10, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. And I think, yeah, obviously, you want to keep the TV series going, but I think and maybe even the one-off spin-off movie's cool, but I think at some point we should get
Mm-hmm.
more Star Wars episodes. Whether or not they follow the same Skywalker saga, whether they're set 5,000 years in the future or whatever, because you gotta, it's, at least for me, it's tradition.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna change tradition, you gotta have a good reason. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the idea of, oh, it just feels natural to go to television, ah, that seems a little weak to me.
Yeah. Like
But
doing
anyways,
something just because it's trendy is not a good enough reason.
yeah. On March 19th, Kennedy and Lucas received the Milestone Award from the Producers Guild of America, and something happened to her while watching the video montage. The clip of the pair over the decades included a shirtless Lucas in a squirt gun battle with Steven Spielberg, and Kennedy and Lucas joking around in a production disrupting downpour. What I was so taken with is how much fun we were having, she said. It amounted to this moment of realization. I do feel like a bit of fun has gone out of making these gigantic movies. The business, the stakes, everything that's been infused in the last 10 years or so. There's a kind of spontaneity and good time that we have to be careful to preserve. I keep holding on to it better be fun. After more than 50 years with Lucasfilm navigating a new path, that's as good a lodestar to follow as any. And that is the end of that much longer than I anticipated article.
Mm-hmm.
So, having read all of that, where do you. This is the biggest question, Michael. I know you've been out of the loop since January because of Army Boot Camp, so
Mm-hmm.
you've missed, of course, Book of Boba Fett. But based off of that article, where do you think Star Wars is right now? Is Star Wars in a good place, a worse place, or about the same place as it has been last time you checked?
Well, I would say it's totally at a different place, since I've was pretty much radio silent from January to May. But all I can say right now is that Disney Star Wars is taking a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much saying we're not gonna do major movies for a while, and now we're gonna focus on different TV series. I can respect that because it has worked so far, but like you said, eventually there's gonna have to be time to go back to the original Star Wars formula. And they don't have to do it exactly the same way, but just for tradition's sake, still go back to like the big screen.
I agree. For me, having stayed on this while you were gone, I know I haven't been making a lot of scripted content on here covering this stuff because after Book of Boba Fett, I just wanted a break from thinking about this. And now with Kenobi on the horizon, it's time to get back into the swing of it. But knowing what I know, hearing what I have heard, not just about Star Wars, but with Disney itself, which that's a whole nother conversation, Michael. I struggle to get excited for any of this, including Kenobi, which is, again, as of this recording, 9 days away. And Obi-Wan, specifically Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, is my favorite character of Star Wars entirely. And the most that I can muster is, you have my attention. That's kind of sad. And like we said the other day on Coffee on Korban's stream this past Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
all I want is to be able to like it. Like that literally at this point is my only criteria. I just want to like it. But we will see what happens, not just with Kenobi, but with all of the stuff that they've laid out as far as future plans. And I will definitely say, having read this article, it was definitely interesting to hear all of this from Kathleen Kennedy's own words because
Mm-hmm.
admittedly, and again, this is not to throw any sort of disrespect at any of our fellow YouTubers that may be putting out theories or rumors. Kennedy, as they're built up in these theories, is one thing, but hearing Kennedy's own words from herself is another thing entirely. And honestly, I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Finally getting to the source of what's going on in her head. Now, could that have been something rehearsed for Vanity Fair? Yes. But even a rehearsed statement from the main source is better than just mere speculation, I think.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and close down this. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And just remember, everyone, the Force is family.
Mm.
See you guys later.
Thank you so much.